What is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of a shooter game? Maybe you think of fast-paced cinematic chaos like Call of Duty, perhaps even calculated teamwork like Counter-Strike or Rainbow Six Siege. Hell, maybe you'd even think of something methodical, intense, dark and intimate like Ready or Not and SWAT 4. We all have our own preconceived notions of this genre. After all, it's probably one of, if not the most popular genre in all of gaming, the home of many iconic franchises such as Doom, Wolfenstein, Battlefield, GoldenEye, Call of Duty, and the list goes on and on and on. However, what if I told you that there is one shooter game out there that might just be one of the most profound games about mental health of all time? You might not typically associate themes of mental health, such as depression, isolation, trauma, and self-harm with this genre, nor would you expect a typical shooter to explore gun safety, teaching you how to truly respect firearms, handle them with care, and a great sense of responsibility, instead of viewing them through the lenses of careless, thoughtless action like most games in the genre. So what is the name of this game? Well, it's none other than Receiver 2.
It is here. No more planning, no more training, no more time. It is here. The threat will not wait to kill you. Find the tapes. They are our only chance for survival. If you are hearing this, know you are one of the few. Listen to the tapes. This is our last transmission. It is here.
I first discovered Receiver 1 and 2 a few months ago, and the incredibly unique, niche premise of these games was one that I found very intriguing. Shooter games that accurately simulate almost every single functionality of a gun. You don't just point, shoot, and reload like in every other game. You have to painstakingly fill every magazine with individual bullets, turn the safety on and off, insert the magazine, rack the slide. You have to draw your gun carefully as not to accidentally shoot yourself. You even have to learn how to resolve malfunctions such as double feeds and failure to eject. You can also inadvertently hurt yourself if you shoot glass at close range. It's a game that starts out with this weird and awkward learning curve, but as soon as it becomes second nature, my god, is it satisfying and addictive. This was what initially drew me to Receiver, the challenge that comes from how to reinvent the mechanics of a shooter game. As someone who doesn't really know a whole lot about guns, this was something that I found to be very, very fascinating. Unbeknownst to me, there was a secret, hidden layer to Receiver. Something that was much deeper than I initially expected, that I began to really appreciate the further I progressed into the game. Receiver 2 is a deeply psychological game, one that on the surface might seem like it's about combat, but it's not. It's a game about surviving the shadows within yourself, and as you've probably already guessed, Receiver's themes about mental health are primarily what I want to discuss in today's video. So, let's dive in together and explore the light within the heart of Receiver 2's darkness. Before we continue with the video, I'd just like to say that my debut science fiction novel is out now, link in the description below. Before we continue with the video, I feel like it's appropriate to state a disclaimer. This game, and by extension this video, explores heavy subject matter that might be distressing for some viewers. Discretion is advised. A list of triggers are on the screen right now and are as follows. I've also provided links in the description and the pinned comment below for resources that might help anybody struggling with mental health, so don't be afraid to check that out. Anyway, with all of that out of the way, let's continue with the video. So, if you're unfamiliar with this game, then you're probably wondering, what exactly is Receiver 2 about? Receiver 2 is set in an alternate reality known as the Dream-In. Think of it as like a lucid dream that you're trapped inside. This reality is home to a hostile force known only as the Threat. The Threat is an invisible entity that weakens the minds of humans to make them distrusting, vulnerable, susceptible to malevolent influence. Not only is it the catalyst for all the trauma and mental health issues in the world, but the Threat has also eliminated the physical world through an apocalyptic event called the Mind Kill. Almost everyone in the physical world is gone, but not you. Because you are a receiver, a member of a small group of people who were warned about the threat and trained your minds to prepare for the mind kill, minimizing the threat's influence on yourselves using mind tech. Mind tech are basically mental strategies that receivers employ to deal with the negative thoughts or emotions that the threat instills within you, and once the physical world vanished, your mind survived and were transported to the Dream-In. Your goal? To reach an awakened state of enlightenment together in order to reclaim the physical reality with your minds by hunting down cassette tapes with information on the threat and instructions on how to survive the Dream-In. But that goal is, unfortunately, not as straightforward as it sounds, for the threat is fighting back, hindering you with the manifestations of enemies such as drones and turrets out to kill you. Every time you uncover a specific number of tapes, you achieve further insight and rise up the ranks as you become more and more awakened, but every time you're killed, you relapse and fall deeper into an unawakened state. As you can probably guess, this game has a lot of allegories for mental health and overall inner healing. So let's explore Receiver's core themes as we start off with the most literal before flowing towards the more conceptual. Receiver's fixation on gun realism is a very engaging aspect of the game, differentiating itself from the rest of the FPS competition in a way that's very unique and I don't believe has ever been done before in a video game. However, there's a deeper intention to these mechanics beyond realism. These mechanics enforce mindfulness and discipline, a couple of Receiver's core themes. The game teaches you how to remain in the present moment at all times, exercise caution, steadiness, and how to remain calm under pressure. Much like how someone who might be dealing with anxiety, intrusive thoughts, or an emotional breakdown needs to stay grounded, aware of their emotions, and try not to do anything too rash or reckless amidst their episode. This aspect of the game is a little more difficult than you might expect. The game is always trying to push you to panic, whether it's a turret tucked away in the corner of a room that you did not expect, or a drone soaring towards you with full force. If you act on impulse, rush a reload, or misfire, there are deadly consequences. Just like in real life, reacting hastily instead of mindfully often leads to spiraling outcomes, regret, and further pain. So how do you react mindfully? How do you approach episodes of anxiety, trauma, depression, etc. with a lot more care and groundedness? Well, that leads us to the topic of the cassette tapes you're tasked with tracking down throughout your playthrough. The cassette tapes you listen to cover a wide variety of topics. They serve to explain the lore behind Receiver's world, share trivia about all the different firearms you get to use, teach you how to exercise gun safety, and whatever the hell this is.
How did you do? Let's try again. Good job.
However, there are two types of tapes that I primarily want to focus on for this video. The first type are none other than the techniques that receivers use to combat the threat and the mind kill, which mirrors real-life therapeutic techniques you can use in the real world. Some of these cassette tapes contain mantras, breathing techniques, and guided exercises. These tapes help walk you through how to calm your breath during a panic attack, teach you how to recognize self-destructive thoughts, and how to uncover the root cause of them. And most importantly of all, reminding you to reach out to the ones who love you for help whenever you're struggling.
When explorers die of dehydration, their water bottles are usually not empty. They were saving their resources for later, when it got really bad. When the threat kills people by suicide, it usually turns out that they never asked their family or friends for help. They were saving that for later, when it got really bad. If you are under attack by the threat, ask for help now. There is no later.
The purpose of those tapes are to slowly rewire the way you think as a player, leaning into aspects of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is basically a type of psychotherapy that helps people manage their mental health issues by identifying and changing unhelpful thinking patterns or behaviors through practical skills. However, the second type of tape that I wanted to bring up is far, far darker.
I'm so sorry. I've always been such a disappointment. I would have just kept getting more pathetic. I can't stand to be a burden on you any longer. I hope one day you can forgive me. I love you. I'm sorry.
These tapes are decoys sent by the threat in an attempt to compromise your mind and your emotional well-being. These tapes read out suicide letters that people who are struggling wrote right before attempting to take their own lives.
Okay. Don't come in the garage. Call your mommy. She will know what to do. Please, please, don't go in the garage. It's off limits. Love, Daddy.
These tapes are detrimental to you. After listening to these tapes, it's too late. You have fallen into the threat's trap. The threat will then take over your body, forcing you to turn your gun on yourself, and you have to quickly unload your gun and remove any and all bullets before you're forced to shoot yourself in the head.
Yeah, I tried to tell you. I tried to get support. I did everything they said I should. And it didn't work. It didn't work. This is all your fault. All of you. I hope you all finally understand what you did to me and hate yourselves for it. See you in hell.
There are a couple of purposes behind the inclusion of these sorts of tapes in the game. The primary purpose of these tapes are to teach you what to do whenever you're feeling suicidal. Remove yourself from anything that you could use to hurt yourself. Unload your gun and lock it away. Get rid of that rope. Steer clear of that ledge. Do not ingest that poison. Just let this moment pass. Just take a moment to calm down. These tapes are obviously very hard-hitting and they don't pull any punches, as they should. After all, these are emotions that billions of people all around the world are going through right now. These are issues that have been with us since the beginning of the human race. And it's important to have a comprehensive understanding of what it's like to live in the shoes of somebody who has lost the will to live, so that we can better help those close to us who might be going through the same things. However, these tapes may not be as bleak, negative, and hopeless as you might expect. As I mentioned earlier on in this video, there is a light within the heart of Receiver 2's darkness. Upon surviving one of the threat's cassette tapes, you are given a note that you can read in the game's pause menu. What do the notes entail? Well, these notes are about what happened after these people wrote their suicide letter. Do you remember the first example I showed you? That man's name was Rich. The note you get after hearing his letter details how he lost the will to live after the sudden death of his sister and felt like a burden to those around him. He attempted to drive off the Golden Gate Bridge but was grabbed by 2 police officers. As Rich progressed further into his receiver training, he started to realize that he had never been a burden on anyone. Humans have a fundamental need to help each other, and so, Rich finally accepted the help he needed from his friends and family. Fast forward many years later, Rich has cultivated new, healthier habits, and had found himself in a much better place in life. Now, how about the second tape I showed you? Bob was a veteran struggling with PTSD and experiencing difficulty reintegrating into the lifestyle of a civilian. He attempted to take his own life, believing that his life insurance would give his family more value than his presence. However, after this failed attempt, Bob began to realize how important he was to his family and learned to see the value in being a stay-at-home dad, eventually writing a popular book on the subject, drawing funny and insightful comparisons between parenting and soldiering. And finally, let's talk about Greg, the last example I showcased. Greg's anger had begun to build after an incredibly humiliating rejection, and he wanted to hurt other people to take revenge. He asked one of his friends to change the code on his gun safe as a precaution, but during an episode he tried to get the code back. His friend refused. They fought and were both arrested. As time went on, Greg learned how to redirect his anger towards the threat where it belonged, and how to channel that energy into reshaping his life. He took up parkour as a hobby and found that moving his body helped calm his mind, before eventually starting a successful business teaching parkour to children. Those are just a few examples of the many tapes that you can find throughout the game about people attempting to take their own lives. So what do the examples that I've shown you teach us? Well, they teach us that nothing is permanent and that the circumstances of your life can always change for the better. Sure, maybe you'll always struggle with your mental health and trauma, but there's so many things you still haven't tried yet. There are so many people you haven't met yet. There is love and support out there if you look for it, and even if you will always struggle, that doesn't mean that you will never find people who will want to help you. People that can help make these struggles of day-to-day life worth enduring. And above all else, these notes show us that it's okay to relapse. Everyone does. Just because you might fail or relapse in your journey towards a better life, that doesn't mean that you can't get back up again. And as it just so happens, relapsing is another one of Receiver 2's core themes. So, what happens when you die in a video game? You are thrust into a game over screen, potentially followed by a lot of swearing at your computer monitor or television screen. Receiver 2 handles the player's failures a little bit differently, however. Death and failure in Receiver is not portrayed as a game over, but instead a relapse. If the game as a whole symbolizes mental recovery, then dying in this game is framed as a setback. You progress through the game, through the ranks, and every time you die, you regress to a lower rank. Dying is usually a frequent occurrence in this game when you're first starting out and trying to get the hang of the mechanics, fumbling all over your keyboard, accidentally dropping magazines, forgetting to rack the slide, unsure how to resolve a malfunction, and the fact that you can die in one hit definitely doesn't make matters easier. But in the real world, that's what healing looks like. Healing is something that can be incredibly messy, exhausting. You experience tons of false starts. Even when you think you're finally getting better, that everything is improving, you can still unexpectedly break down and be thrust back to square one. Yet no matter how many times you fail, Receiver 2 still encourages you to try again instead of shaming you. There's even a cassette tape in this game about how setbacks are normal.
The threat has buried a caustic idea deep in our collective psyche, that one mistake undoes all previous effort, that somehow the failures count much more than the successes, that temporary setbacks are permanent, or that permanent setbacks are the same as no progress at all. The fundamental process of accomplishing any goal is to be able to overcome the inevitable setbacks. Focus your mind's eye on this universal process. This setback has given you the opportunity to train the foundational skill that all skills are built on: grit.
In real life, everything is usually stacked against you in your healing. It can take a long time to put yourself back together again, and sometimes, even when you do, something else can come along that breaks you all over again. Much like how the dreaming in Receiver 2 is actively working against you as the threat does everything in its power to prevent you from achieving further enlightenment. After all, the threat and the dreaming are allegories for mental illness for a reason. So let's dive deeper into that. To exist within the hostile realm of the dreaming is a very lonely, isolating experience. It's just you, your gun, maybe a flashlight if the RNG gods have mercy on you, and everything out to kill you. The dreaming represents your subconscious mind, populated with triggers, memories, dangers, and so much shit that does not make any sense. It's a surreal yet threatening place, one that resembles the real world, but everything about it is just wrong, and feels completely off. Like an alien who's been tasked with designing a human city without any awareness as to what a human city is actually like, and no knowledge on what any of the different things you might find inside of a house is meant to do. Oh, and another thing worth noting is that this realm is not designed in a linear way like most levels in your typical game. Most video game levels are about moving from point A to point B, but Receiver 2's map is non-linear and multi-dimensional. Every time you spawn into the game or die, you resurrect, you always end up in a different part of the map than before. The layout is designed in a way where you're constantly getting lost, unsure of where you're even going, and it even has multiple layers and floors that you can climb or descend. But why is the map designed in this way? Well, because the experience of navigating the ocean within yourself is one that is filled with so many overwhelming emotions, and trying to find a way to heal, to move on, is a non-linear experience. It is so goddamn difficult. Feel lost in life, and your body does not feel like a kind place to live in. Your mind is your own worst enemy. In fact, this reminds me of something that late Linkin Park frontman Chester Bennington once said.
I know that for me, when I'm inside myself, when I'm in my own head, it gets this place right here, this skull between my ears. That is a bad neighborhood, and I should not be in there alone. My whole life gets thrown off. Like, if I'm in there, like, I don't say nice things to myself. Like, there's another Chester in there that's like wants to take me down. If I'm out of myself, I'm great. If I'm inside all the time, I'm horrible. I'm a mess.
In the dreaming, you find so many drones and turrets that want to shoot you or electrocute you, all sent by the threat. An entity without a face, without an identity, never seen by the player. Trauma is a monster that you can never see, yet this very monster lives inside of you, affecting your decision-making, your capacity to lead a normal life. It twists your mind, contorts your reality, and deludes you into believing the things about yourself that aren't true, whispering from deep within that you're nothing, your life is meaningless, telling you that death is the only way you can solve all of your problems in life. These drones and turrets are like intrusive thoughts you're fighting back against constantly, Thoughts that you keep buried and repressed within because they are just so goddamn frightening. I know for a fact that, in my own personal life, my own thoughts have even scared the shit out of me. For the longest time, my mind was such a frightening and nihilistic place to live in. For a lot of people, this is a lifelong battle against the corruption of the self. You spend a lot of time in this game dodging bullets and navigating mazes, but you're also navigating yourself. Your journey in the dreaming is symbolic of the messy process of inner healing, this realm becoming a reflection of what it's like to live in a mind that's constantly struggling with itself. That is what makes Receiver 2 so profound. It's a game that immerses you in the experience of surviving your own inner darkness, in the realm of interactive storytelling. This game is a very notable piece of work that deserves a lot more recognition for its deepness and complexity. So that about does it for all of the themes that Receiver 2 covers, and that leaves us with just one question. What is the point behind the inclusion of all of these themes? Put it simply, Receiver 2 wants you to incorporate all of these lessons into your real life. The developers intended takeaways for you to take everything that you learned throughout your playthrough and use that knowledge to not just better your life, but to better the lives of those around you too. This is abundantly clear in the game's final level, titled Awake, one where the sun has begun to rise for the first time in the entire game, and you are only tasked with collecting 3 tapes, the most unique and meta tapes in the entire game.
This is the first insight. In order to fully awaken, you must accept it. Until now, you thought you were playing a game, that you could turn it off. Now, this idea has been implanted by the threat. In fact, the threat has expanded to the reality outside of the game. We call this Reality C. The threat has been influencing what you see and hear until you can't tell what is fictional and what is real. This is the first of 3 insights. After you accept the 3rd insight, you will hear a tone, and you will awaken.
In this first tape, we see that there is a deeper layer to Receiver's themes than what you would initially assume. This game isn't just a commentary on mental illness, it is a guide on how to live with mental illness. The other 2 tapes you uncover during this level carry on the message from the first, basically telling you that this game is where you have constructed the mind tech you need to defend yourself and combat the threat. How your newfound knowledge is heavy, intricate, functional, resilient, and that you now stand ready to use these tools against the threat. I think a huge part of the reason as to why this game and its core themes have resonated with me so strongly is because I have been going through a journey of inner healing in my own personal life throughout the past year and a half. The circumstances of which I won't get into in this video, but what I can say is that the healing experience has been incredibly intense. A lot of the mental health struggles that Receiver 2 explores are ones that I can relate to a lot. In fact, I've been struggling with my mental health for most of my life. So I wanted to make a video about this game in part to share the lessons that this game preaches and why this game is such a powerful experience as a result. Receiver 2 is more than just an experimental shooter, it's a game that invites you to look inward, to confront all of the pain that lives inside of you and affirms to you that fighting for a better, more peaceful life is worth it. By learning how to survive in the dreaming, you also learn how to survive in the real world too, and become more equipped to handle your struggles in life. There are a lot of games out there that people, myself included, find to be emotionally resonant or powerful, and without a doubt, Receiver 2 is one of them. In conclusion, Receiver 2 is a game that I found to be a very refreshing entry in the shooter genre. One that really helps you to think, to ponder, and develop better strategies to cope with the challenges that life throws at you. It's a game that's probably not for everyone, and that's not just because of the deep, potentially distressing themes surrounding mental health. It's a game that's repetitive, occasionally frustrating, a bit clunky, and deeply niche. But beneath the surface of Receiver 2 is an incredibly empathetic core. Sometimes life can be challenging, it can be tragic, unbearable. Sometimes you don't want to live anymore, sometimes you wish that you could die. Sometimes our minds can turn on us, hinder us. But during those times when your mind does turn on you, that's when you need to treat yourself with kindness and care the most. To look after yourself the same way you would look after someone you love if they were in the same shoes you're in right now. And this game goes a long way to help give you these strategies, the mind tech, to deal with all of the difficult things you might be experiencing.
Open your mind's eye to see the mind tech you have built. They are heavy and intricate, with each component perfectly formed and in its right place. Functional, resilient. You stand ready to use these tools against the threat. Its message was a systemic process. This process was an initiation. You have completed this initiation. You are now a receiver.
Anyway, if you've made it this far into the video, then thank you so much for giving me your time. What are your personal thoughts on Receiver 2? Whatever you think, feel free to leave a comment down in the description below and like the video if you enjoyed. If you're interested in seeing more from me, I cover a lot of movies, shows, video games, and other pop culture on this channel that I'm personally interested in or feel nostalgic for. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, feel free to subscribe. I'm also an author, so if you're interested in reading something new, whether that may be science fiction, fantasy, etc., then feel free to check out my work. Links in the description below. But with all of that being said, thank you so much for checking out my video, and hopefully, I'll see you again in the next one.